Nice to see you again. Yeah, to save time, because we do have lots of good speakers. Storyteller again, Michael Yu, on the panel. Thank you very much. Please be seated. And we have Professor Zhang Lianzhong. Two lovely ladies. We have one from Ms. Zhu Chunna, please. And then Sally, please come on stage. Thank you very much to be with us. And to save time, I really want to introduce them quickly. And then there are about 300 million Chinese English learners, English language learners in China. 300 million, that's nearly the population of the United States. And our industry is worth about $5 billion US. Now let me first introduce Michael. So simply put, Michael is my boss. Yeah? I don't need to do introduce anything more. But Michael is a national figure, as I mentioned before. And he is the chairman and founder of New Oriental. And Michael also sits on the top advisory body, the CPPCC of China, the national committee, which provides lots of key suggestions in the education sector in terms of the Chinese national education, which is quite important as well. And for many years, Michael has been doing quite a lot in order to support the whole person education in China. So in 1993, Michael started the school, New Oriental School, the Beijing New Oriental School, starting, as I mentioned, 13 students, and now we're growing massively. New Oriental went to New York to get listed back in 2006, which is the first of its kind, which also made history. And we're still continuing to do more and more. As I mentioned, for the past 12 months, from the number of 13 to the number of over 7 million student enrollments, that's still quite impressive. So this is Michael. We'll listen more from him directly. Professor Zhang Lianzhong is in English education with Beijing Foreign Studies University. He has been teaching and doing English language research in the field of linguistics, language education, language testing, and teacher development for over 4 decades. Professor Zhang is also a consultant for British Council English teaching in China. Next, we have Ms. Zhu Chunna, who is the founder and CEO of Microlanguage. Since the founding in 2012, Microlanguage has become a key force of China's English language learning and a dual teaching provider for online live courses. It also launched a bilingual English language live study platform in public schools and training institutions. Last but not least is Sally Xie. She is the founder and CEO of Car Story. Launched in 2015, Car Story focuses on providing early reading services for children 9 or under through the audio and visual picture books and audio stories. So these are the key figures which can give you a whole picture of the landscape of language learning, especially English language learning, as Mr. Yu has mentioned, how important it is, how important that changed the life, not only him, but also millions of students. So I want to quickly ask, may I ask Mr. Yu, tell us a story that you can remember, your experience in learning English. Can you share us with a story of your English language story?
I think I've talked too much about, can you hear me? Sorry. I think I talked a lot about English learning already. Just like with my opening speech here, I said learning English for Chinese people is a necessity. It's not like United States people learning Chinese is not a necessity for you, because Chinese people really want to go out into this world, want to become really go into the globalization of this world, so that they can learn more and they can have more opportunities to not only to go to study in like universities in United States or UK, but also they get economically speaking, get chances to do business with this whole world. So that's why there's Chinese people, there's a passion. Learning English means to change their life, even change their destiny, even change their fate. So that's why Chinese people have so much enthusiasm and passion to study something, to study English. That's why American people don't have the passion to study Chinese, because when they go to Beijing, they can speak English. And almost all of the Chinese people who want to communicate with you, they will speak in English with you. So there's a reason behind every success, more than 300 million people studying English. I think it should be like around like half of the populations of Chinese people, because those people who are under 50 years of age, everybody of them are kind of can speak English, especially even those people that didn't get a university education. When they are doing business in like those scenic spots areas, like in Terracotta in Xi'an, they can speak perfect English, so that they can entice you to buy things from them, So it's interesting because the only reason is that Chinese people want to be successful with English language. That's the only reason. So if one day that all over the world people are speaking Chinese, and when you want to do business in China, learning Chinese becomes a necessity for your business to be successful, I'm pretty sure you will study Chinese and will stop studying English, because it does not deserve it. We spend all our life, most of our time studying a language that we cannot use actually sometimes. But still, it is crucial for us to change our life. If I'm not to study English, if I didn't go to university to study like language, then there will be no opportunity for me to set up New Oriental, and there was no opportunity for me to take New Oriental IPO in NASDAQ, in New York Stock Exchange. And most important of all, there is no opportunity for me here to stay here facing you guys,
And also, there's no opportunity for me to be here.
There's no opportunity for me to hire you,
Okay, Professor Zhang, you are a key figure and much more well-known in the English language learning community in China. Could you share us with the story of how you learned your English at your time?
Okay, let me put it this way. I don't want to talk about my kind of personal or academic kind of background, whatever, because you mentioned about that. I'd rather give you 3 interesting, simple examples of how people learn English to prove the point that learning English is more than just learning, acquiring a foreign language. So no, there's a commonly shared joke about Chinese learners of English, because when you start to learn language and you try to articulate or pronounce your words as accurately as possible, and often you get response from native speakers say, hey, you speak good English. And the common, not unexpected response is, where? I mean, you don't understand, but the Chinese learners of English should understand, because that's a direct translation of Chinese words into English, and which suggests that you're being modest. And this being modest, sometimes we feel it hurts people's learning of English, also hurts people's, let's say, characteristic development. Then you remind me about an experience in Xi'an. When I was traveling in Xi'an near the warriors or the tombs, I saw some of the ladies in their late 50s or even 60s. They were trying to sell some fruit to international travelers. And they used the limited English in a very confident way. They say 2 things. One is chip. The other one is dollar, $10. So for them, for those people, it's not that kind of, it's not that kind of challenging. It's simply the purpose is to sell whatever they want to. Make a living, and getting rich, right? And then, and finally, I was thinking about one good example. Once I was the consultant to the Sino-American, let's say, intergovernmental project. And the American government tried to provide a language teaching program. They spent about, let's say, $20 million, inviting professors from all over the country, including MIT. And they developed a very nice TV program, and then which they put onto computer. We tried that in a very remote school in Gansu province, far west. The first time I accompanied all the professors to that province, and they landed at the airport. We traveled a bit to the school in the mountain, and the comment from the teachers, from the university professors was, it looks like moon, because the hilly mountains, the very barren. Then we tried to promote this program to the teachers. The teachers' response was this: okay, that's a very nice program, but why? How should I teach it? Has that something to do with the test? And that's the common kind of response. And after a year, we try that, we see some kind of progression and achievement. But one thing strikes me most was when we had this, let's say, evaluation meeting, the minister from your country, from Ministry of Education, came, he had a big delegation. We were there, warmly welcomed by the local government. And at the meeting, everyone was saying something very nice, positive about the program. Then we say, all right, let's hear from the students. One kid of the year, let's say about 14 years old, a very big, stout kind of boy, stand up. He stood up, pointing to the minister, and said something in his local Gansu accent. And he said something like, I think you speak too fast, I want it slow. Then he sit down. Then all the faces from the Chinese side turned pale because they were thinking, oh, there's a big diplomatic problem arising from this. Then I was checking with the minister. I said, all right, did you catch it? And he said, yes. I was trying to say, all right, you see from this language teaching program, the result is the Chinese kids are becoming more than just using the language. You see, they are trying to express their heart, their mind in a very brave, bold way. They don't care about articulation, pronunciation, whatever. They're just trying to say that. So I was saying, all right, in 10 years' time, our kids will be...
Why I always encourage myself, because I never have a right pronunciation anyway.
Okay, that's why I say, I've been insisting on this. But the response from the American side was quite interesting. They say something like, that's what we expected. So language learning goes beyond language. It is about the development of a person. This morning we heard from Mr. Yu. Yeah. This is a very good, wonderful example, right? So I would say that language learning, encouraging people to learn more about English, has a bigger meaning, significance, and impact on the learner in China particularly. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing with us not only one vivid story, but many. And the language learning obviously is not the language per se, but obviously the culture, the personality, and also the insight that you can observe into this world. Chunna, may I ask,
thank you, Mr.
what's your
Chen.
experience?
Yeah. When I was a student, I can't help myself recalling how to get my first and most important dictionary when I was a secondary student. Back to about 30 years ago, my parents couldn't offer me to buy enough learning materials. My family's income was just 60 yen at that time. When it happened to find a very good Longman English to Chinese dictionary in the store before Spring Festival, I was really eager to get one, but it was 12 yens. So fortunately, I got 8 yens from all my relatives as pocket money, and then I got another 4 yens from my parents. For the following few years, I used this dictionary study more than 2 hours every day to learn the bilingual explanation of each word, to usage of new words, and use this dictionary to learn how to study English in proper way. Okay, it's my story, very simple.
Yes. Sally, you started in Hong Kong, and then you worked in Australia for 5 years. So how did you find once you were in Australia and you reflect your English language learning that you did in China? So what's your experience?
I went to Australia when I was 30 years old. Yeah, and I studied in Hong Kong, but that was a master degree. I only travel every month on weekends. And actually, I finished my uni in Hangzhou Normal University. That is Teachers College. I started to learn English from middle school, 13 years old. I think most of students born in 1980s and study English from middle school. I think after 1 year study in middle school, I noticed the textbook not enough. So that's why I picked up a new concept. Yeah, I learned by myself. The new concept helped me to get a very solid grammar and vocabulary foundation. After I go to high school, American course called Family Album US becomes very popular. So I also studied by myself. So this course focuses more on oral practice, daily life, and as well as Western cultures. So new concept and Family Album USA are two very important self-learning courses in my school life. Yeah.
We are on stage talking about the topic of English language learning through generations, but I have to pointing out that we are taking English as an example, but actually we're talking about foreign language learning, to be frank. And more people are learning Chinese, vice versa, right now in other parts of the world. And then can I ask, I'm wondering, generations after learning English language for so many years, what has or has not changed in English language learning in China? Michael?
Well, I think there's not really much change because the urge or the passion behind English learning is the same actually, like today as like a lot more than like 40 years ago when I was learning English in my high school. Just like what I said, the main reason behind it is because English learning can make a change in people's life in China. So let's say like you can see that there's a big success of English learning in China already, because it's a national policy. Like English examination is required by the government for national entrance examinations, which is the first priority also. It's equal to mathematics and equal to Chinese language, the same score, you know. So that means like if you do not study English, even you cannot go to university in China. In China, you mean, not in the United States. Of course, if you want to come to the United States to study in universities, you have a better English language learning. Like you have to pass TOEFL or IELTS, something like that. So you can see the achievement is obvious because everybody here on this panel and every panel of here, you can see Chinese people are speaking English to try to carry out their own ideas and what they think in their mind. But think like, for example, next year, if we hold another conference in China, and I would like to invite all these people from the United States to speak in Chinese in the panel. Can you do that?
New Rent is going to set up a course. New Rent is going to open up a new business teaching Chinese.
So that means Chinese people are opening themselves, no matter what is the government restrictions or what government, what they think Chinese people, what they should do. But the one thing government always doing things right, that is encourage people to study other languages so that Chinese can merge into this world. But I don't think American government is encouraging you to study Chinese, even though Chinese is also very important actually later. So I'm going to do next time maybe to tell Chinese people do not speak English anymore so that we can make American people study Chinese. Anyway, you need to keep contact with Chinese people, like no matter what trade war is happening between us. But I know that there are some of my friends, their origin is the United States. They are arranging their kids to study Chinese, every week almost. There are some elementary schools or middle school in the United States that also use Chinese as second language already. But I'm pretty sure, like looking into the future, into another 20 years, I think Chinese will become also very important for people to know, because anyway, China is a big economic body that if we want to make people rich on both sides, then language communication becomes, it's really a necessity. We are trying our best to study English, but I hope that American people, it's because behind the language, it's culture, it's an understanding of different nations. So I really hope, sincerely hope that American people can spend some time studying Chinese. you will find the beauty of Chinese characters because each Chinese character actually is a picture if you want to learn about that. So that means that it's a kind of efforts on both sides to make this world a better place to live in.
Indeed. Yeah, indeed. I recall that when Mark Zuckerberg went to visit China and he joined a lecture in Tsinghua University and he spoke Mandarin. Although it took me some time to figure out he is speaking Mandarin because of the very weird Chinese tone.
I was listening to him, even though his Chinese, it's very simple, sometimes makes mistakes, but it gives Chinese students, especially universities, such kind of, a huge surprise that American people, one of the biggest entrepreneurs like in the United States are studying Chinese. That means Americans are very friendly to Chinese people, So very important if you guys speak some Chinese. If you can speak some Chinese on Chinese street, you will definitely not robbed by Chinese thief.
Professor Zhang, we go back to the question. Your observation as an expert in English language learning, what has and has not changed after so many years English language learning in China?
I think as Mr. Yu mentioned about, the passion for learning English try to change one's life for a better life has not changed. And the parents' expectations are even bigger, right? But what has changed, we say, the new curriculum, new testing system, and the new textbooks, which are becoming more international. So that's really providing the context for a better language education reform in China. But then the teachers, some of them are changing, some of them are finding the time much harder because they were taught in the traditional way. Now they have to teach what Mr. Zhu mentioned about, it's a more communicative approach, more kind of thought-provoking approach. And instead of just teaching the language, they teach people to think in the language to become a more international person. That is more challenging, I think. But anyway, change and not change, I think, is happening at the same time. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to give the question a bit of twist going to Chunna because you're doing the language learning platform and technology quite important, and you are providing services not only to private but public institutions. How would you find the difficulties, obstacles for today's Chinese young children in learning English?
Okay. China has the biggest population in the world, and we have more than 500,000 public schools. After more than 3 decades of educational reform, something happened in good in some cities and some schools. Also has some teachers, they have relaxed. They think more about students to practice their listening, reading, and writing and speaking. So something it's really, they want to try, but our Chinese teachers, many Chinese teachers, they using a traditional way, and they cannot change too much. But nowadays, it's a very fast development of IT and technology, information technology, and almost public schools have been equipped with information devices. And everything changed, but the teacher cannot change very fast. Microlanguage, why microlanguage decided to do something right? We can have Chinese teachers to teach English and have Chinese students to learn English more effectively and more efficiently, and to finally help Chinese students to communicate with the world more confidently.
Yeah, I'm aware of the time, although we have loads to share with the audience here. If there's one tip that you can give, Sally, to the English language learning students in China, what's your tip?
I think it's very important. Depends on the parents' thinking. Yeah, if parents can choose the right courses for the kids at the very early age, so children can have very good pronunciation at the very beginning. Yeah, so maybe New Oriental is a good choice. Yeah.
That's not a good tip.
Yeah. So we go to Michael Yu, who is the source for us to find the loads of advices or tips. Michael, what's your tip?
Well, my tip is that language learning is not language learning itself. So even you can speak English, it doesn't mean you are international. So international goes beyond language. So you should understand the mindset of the Western people, so that the mindset of the whole world, so that we can really merge into this world. So when we are coming to the textbooks of English language learning, I hope that we can build up a close tie, among like language, culture, different nations, and even different religious understanding, so that we will become a really better whole one world that people can live together peacefully.
You please? You can give one, because we are eager to hear one piece of advice from you.
Okay, I agree with this point that language learning is more than just language. So in a sense, we need direct person-to-person international communication. And that is, in a sense, we mean we would like to see more foreign native faces in China. If we can't do that, maybe through AI or whatever high-tech devices, we can put you through in the States and into the Chinese classroom, so the kids will get direct communication. That has a bigger impact on the learners because they realize that the language is not just in the book, it's from a real person. Person-to-person in international communication is always very important. Yeah.
Okay, in conclusion, language is power. If you want to learn language, as Sally said, come to New Oriental. Thank you very much for your time.
I have another. I have an here. Anybody who don't have any job in the United States, just come to China to open a language school. We'll help you set up language school because so many Chinese people are studying English. So I'm pretty sure you can make much more money than you are here in the United States. Thank you.